I upgraded Grant's t-shirt cannon. It does this now.
Over the years, TKOR has built tons of cannons and launchers and shooters.
Fire in the hole! Oh, dang.
I've never seen anyone build a rifled potato cannon before. Never seen anyone build any kind of rifled launcher before for civilian use. And that confused me, so we're testing it. Will it help with accuracy and distance? Will I be able to measure rotation with my low-speed cameras? Or will we just rip the potatoes apart because we made a giant cylindrical cheese grater? Future French fries aside, let's talk about why rifling is so important. Gunsmiths experimented with rifling back in the 1500s, but it didn't change the game until the 1800s, when bullets first changed from a sphere in the 1830s with the invention of the cylindro-conical bullet. Though it wasn't until the development of the Manet ball in 1847 that these new designs became widespread and significantly more effective. That early change had a cylindrical body with a pointed head like a rugby ball, with one end cut off, and later, horizontal grooves were added to improve stability. The Manet ball, which had a hollow base, solved the problem of getting a good seal with rifled barrels as it expanded to grip the grooves when fired. So later, we'll use that effect to our advantage as well. 2, 1. Woo! By the way, like the video if you were today years old when you learned that they were rifling barrels all the way back in the 1500s. I thought that was pretty crazy. So once that change was made to the projectiles, it made rifling significantly more effective. To put it in the simplest terms, spirals make things spin. Rifling is the grooves in the gun barrel that make the bullet spin. The spin adds stability in flight by mitigating irregularities on the projectile and in the environment. A smooth barrel is like a knuckleball. So when the ball isn't rotating, those laces act like speed bumps and make the ball wobble in the air as it catches and gets that air resistance on those laces, which is great for Tim Wakefield, but not so great if you're a marksman. Luckily for us, potatoes are about the shape of a Manet ball. But how are we gonna test our rifling theory? Yes, we're using blowguns. Now, why blowguns? First, it's a proper low power test. Now, I printed these blowguns. I just found them off of Maker World. I blew them up a little bit to fit this project. I've got one smooth barrel and one rifled barrel. The rifled is PETG Tough Plus, the smooth is ABS. I'm gonna try to test rotation, distance, and accuracy. Let's see if they work as a proof of concept. My lungs don't have enough power for clear results. So how are we gonna fix that? This mini blowgun will help eliminate human error. Consistency is super important. But how do you think each barrel is gonna perform? Pause the video and comment down below. It looks like at 10 feet, we start to see a drop off accuracy.
Let's try it with the other barrel.
Okay, this will be good. 3, 2, 1. The problem is this chamber is too small. So when I'm trying to test this, it's not working really. Okay, the reality is this is a great idea, but it needs to be scaled up in order to work. But will it scale up, and how the crap am I gonna make that happen? I don't have any tank parts lying around, and they're a bit above budget for this video.
So I came to the experts.
Well, they didn't exactly know either, but we found this stuff. This stuff fit perfectly in our 1 1/4 inch PVC barrel. So here, what I'm doing is just marking the locations where I'm going to cut my rifling into this pipe. So essentially, I have some flexible tubing that I can cut pretty easily and that I know that I can fit into another barrel that's going to make it more rigid. So basically what I've done is I've marked every 3 inches up and 1 inch across. Effectively, what I did was I made a cylindrical grid around this pipe.
Okay. We have our marks. Let's cut it.
Then I cut along the lines and it made it a rifled pipe. So now I've got some spaghetti, I guess. I gotta clean this up a little bit and then we can put it into the other piece of PVC that we've got. Okay, I've cleaned up the spaghetti. So here I'm just adding some carbon fiber. I don't need the carbon fiber for strength at all, but I just think the carbon fiber looks really cool. So I wanted it to look sexy, so I added some carbon fiber. Okay, this is looking ugly as hell, but we can change that. I'll be using an iteration on one of Grant's old projects to make this work and stay safe, but the real question is, will this rifling work? Now you also might be wondering, Creed, normally potato cannons shoot super far, and I've only seen you test in the garage. Isn't that gonna make a problem when you're testing for distance? Well, I made a quick trip out to the salt flats because what's the point of measuring distance if you don't have something to compare it to? So I brought both barrels, smooth and rifled, to see if we can get an idea of if the rifling actually makes a difference. You know, where I can actually go measure instead of wondering how far back in the woods it went or whatever. But as you can see, here's where the video takes a turn. Because making a rifled potato cannon has been one headache after another. Still freaking nothing. The heck? The main issue I was having had to do with consistently firing. The chamber was too narrow and the dang thing just wouldn't ignite most of the time. Come on. The science of this is actually pretty simple. Too small of a space means the gases that we're using for the fuel can't mix with the air properly inside the chamber, meaning the ratio of the fuel and the oxygen isn't high enough for it to ignite. 3, 2. That likely didn't help, but
1. Nothing.
I'm gonna take the L on this one.
The heck?
What else needs to happen? Nothing. It should work. It should work. Why is it not working? Sparks happening. I have a good igniter fluid. I'm sure size doesn't really matter that much, right? Well, in this case it did. I'm frustrated. Literally calling the team or my wife every time something would go wrong, asking for advice or help. I couldn't figure it out. But then in the middle of one of my calls with the team, I remembered Grant's t-shirt cannon. The whole point of the original video was about fluid dynamics anyway, how air flowing over a projectile affects trajectory and stability, so I pivoted. I originally stayed away from compressed air because I figured finding an appropriate dump valve would just be far too difficult. Speed, volume, and strength are all limiting factors for most common options to be useful.
Oh dang, that was awesome. It's on the roof. It's on the roof!
But Grant showed us how we can use a sprinkler valve to dump air quickly for applications like this. Rather than spending $200 on an expensive and heavy valve, I'd be spending 20 bucks. Here's where the fluid dynamics kicks in. The diaphragm in a sprinkler valve doesn't care if you're using water or compressed air. Air, actually, because it compresses, theoretically will be softer on the system. And the diaphragm opens super violently, which is great for our application when we want to dump all that air super fast. Longevity though? We'll see. But let's see how it goes on our small scale testing here in the garage. That's crazy. It definitely delaminated a couple of layers there. This is TPU. This has great layer adhesion. Now that we had a fully functional air cannon and a couple barrels to test it, it was time to test again. So I went to the lake. I wanted to see if this launcher would make it the 100 meters needed to clear the full width of the lake. So what ended up happening here was the projectile I printed was too close to a perfect fit for that rifled barrel that I made.
3, 2, 1.
And it essentially delaminated the entire internal section of that barrel.
Interesting.
Unfortunately, in trying to take out all the variables that arose with inconsistency, I made a few errors.
What?
I printed projectiles that reduce any variations, and for trying to visualize the rotation on slow-mo later, I wanted to try shooting it up in the air as well, just to have fun.
3, 2, 1. Whoa! You see that? Right there, right there, right there.
And based on the math I definitely haven't brushed up on in over a decade, when I was shooting it vertically, it was likely going over 120 meters high. So unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to use this version because obviously it got torn from our larger barrel. So that's out. But we do have our air cannon that is quite successful, and we have our smooth barrel that is doing quite well for us. So we just need to figure out a rifled barrel that's gonna work. Adding compressed air is a big step up from a traditional potato cannon. Now, since I ended up ruining the barrel, I had to come up with a different option. So I found this stuff on Amazon. It is the exhaust for a heating unit, and it's going to work perfectly for this application.
I've got a compressor full of air, I've got a cannon with 2 different barrels to test, and I've got a whole bunch of different projectiles. We're gonna test them out, we're gonna hit that. It's not gonna survive. I'm actually gonna switch barrels so I can test the smooth barrel first. We'll start with this. This is like a mini ball. Mini ball? I think it's mini ball, but it's just spelled weird.
Honestly, from the main test itself on the camera preview, it's super difficult to see if it's spinning at all. It's just moving far too quickly.
Woo! Ha ha, crazy. 3, 2, 1. Still hits sideways, that's crazy. Three, 2, 1. Holy cow, they just keep flying sideways. We're changing barrels. We're gonna see if the rifled barrel does anything for us. 3, 2, 1. Oh. That one flew straight.
So this worked a lot better than I expected, to be honest. I think that it is a super awesome project. It was so much fun. The build itself, the process was a little frustrating, I'll be honest with you. But once I finally found out what was gonna work and I knew what I could work with, super, super fun project.
3, 2, 1.
I can definitely say that this made a big difference because at the end of our test when we were using our rifled barrel, the projectiles were actually going straight. I know it's a far cry from the potato cannon we started with, but I think that this air cannon really let us test the limits of what we were looking to do. Let us know in the comments if you think we should try something bigger or if you want to see what this will punch a hole in. We'll see you in the next one.